started school, like every African child, with so much excitement, pride, and joy on the faces of my parents. But the unexpected happened. I could not read, write, and spell like every other child in the classroom. I could not even participate in the nursery rhymes because they were so difficult and almost impossible for me. Why? Because I have dyslexia. And what is dyslexia? Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurological in origin and makes it difficult for an individual to read, write, and spell. I simply say dyslexia is as a result of difference in brain wiring, because the way God has wired the brain of somebody with dyslexia is different from the way God has wired the brain of somebody without dyslexia. Before you know it, I became the least performing pupil in every class and an object of ridicule in every school. I was very popular in my nursery schools, not because I was outstandingly brilliant, but because I was outstandingly dull. I was popularly referred to as a Dullard, that is almost top as my second name. I don't even want to talk about the verbal and physical abuse I went through as a child struggling with dyslexia in the school system. My teachers didn't know anything about dyslexia and how to teach a child with dyslexia, so they resorted to either beating me mercilessly or talking down on me at every opportunity. Of course, I had very few teachers who were very kind to me, even though they didn't know what was wrong with me, but they were at least very patient with me. Out of options, one of my very kind teachers called my mom and told her that I needed a spiritual deliverance, because she had never seen an academic performance as poor as mine. I have very severe dyslexia. And before you know it, I was taken out of school for prayers. Dyslexia drew me to God very early as a child. I had so many questions, just like my teachers and parents. I wanted to know why I found it difficult to do what every other child could do easily in class. After a while, I had to go back to school. But unfortunately, my parents could not afford these big schools in town anymore. So we had to opt for an affordable Ghanaian school, which didn't have the state-of-art facilities that I was used to. They didn't even have windows and doors. But they had something that changed my academic narrative. They had structured literacy. And structured literacy is the science of reading for children with dyslexia. I simply say this is the way individuals with dyslexia are taught to read, write, and spell. So the same way our brain is wired differently, we also learn differently. We are not supposed to be taught the way every other child is taught. So that is why you see so many children with dyslexia in normal classrooms and they are not getting along at all because they are not taught the proper way they should be taught. Before you know it, in my new primary school, I started to read, write, and spell within a month, and I could recite my ABC 1, 2, 3 and read properly like every other child at the age of 10. And before you know it, I was among the top 5 performing pupils in every class. And from GSS2 all through to university level, I taught my classes. Till I eventually emerged the best graduating student of the prestigious University of Ibadan, a top-ranked university in Africa. The news really trended across social media, not because I was the only best graduating student UI has ever had, but because a girl with a very poor academic background emerged as the best graduating student of a top-ranked university in Africa. It was unbelievable, but it happened. And the story went on to inspire so many children with learning difficulties, their parents and teachers in Africa and beyond. Of course, I'm not the only successful individual with dyslexia. We have so many of them globally. We have the likes of Muhammad Ali, we have the likes of Richard Bernstein, we have the likes of Albert Einstein. I'm very sure that so many science students here will be very much familiar with Albert Einstein. And it is so unbelievable to know that they could not read and write at the early stage of their life, but they couldn't. This goes a long way to show that despite our weaknesses in reading, writing, and spelling at the early stages of our lives, there are also strengths that are associated with dyslexia. We are big picture thinkers. We have the ability to think big. I had the vision of inspiring and supporting African children with dyslexia. Immediately I finished from University of Ibadan, and I was the first volunteer when I stepped out. And now we are operating in over 6 countries in Africa. So we have the ability to think big. And dyslexia is a genetic condition. When you have dyslexia, you can pass it on to your children. So when a parent has dyslexia, there is 50% chance of the child having it. And when the 2 parents have dyslexia, there is 100% chance of the child having it. So when there is a dyslexia, when there are dyslexia symptoms in the child, one of the first questions that is asked is to know of the parent's academic background. Okay, did you experience the same struggle when you were a child? Because dyslexia is genetic. And dyslexia is also a lifelong condition. We don't grow out of dyslexia, we learn to thrive and succeed with it. We have memory issues. I can forget so much, but I've learned to thrive with it in such a way that you won't know. I've been practicing my TEDx speech for so long, and my coach will say, "You are very serious." I say, "I must be very serious," because I know I have dyslexia, my memory can fumble at any time, so I have to be very, very serious. So I don't take anything for granted. I'm a hard worker because I'm dyslexic, because I don't want to fumble. And dyslexia has nothing to do with intelligence. A child can have dyslexia and be very intelligent. Children with dyslexia have been found to have average to above average intelligence. In fact, a child can be so much intelligent that you admire them, and when it's time for reading and writing, that's when you know they have dyslexia. So it has nothing to do with dyslexia. The fact that the child is not academically sound does not mean that they are not intelligent. In fact, children with dyslexia have been found to have average to above average intelligence. And dyslexia is the most common learning disability. We have so many other learning disabilities. It's the most common learning disability. And how common is dyslexia? Research has shown over the years that 1 out of every 5 children in every classroom have dyslexia, which can be mild and severe. You know, when we were in school, there was some very critical, although there was a critical, serious one. While we also have some that, it just comes once in a while. Probably the child performs well today and tomorrow the child, but some of us were all times. So, dyslexia happens in 1 out of every 5 children in every class, according to research. And according to Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity, over 20% of the global population have dyslexia. So dyslexia is more common than you think, even in Africa, even right here in this room. Now, let's talk about dyslexia in Africa. Many Africans are not aware of dyslexia, am I right? Yeah. Many Africans are not aware of dyslexia, not even our teachers. Our teachers are not trained on dyslexia and how to teach children with dyslexia. And in Africa, dyslexia is still seen and treated as a spiritual problem. My teacher said I needed spiritual deliverance because she thought I had spiritual problem that needed spiritual deliverance. And in Africa, even though dyslexia support is now available, it is not readily available to children with dyslexia from less privileged homes because it is very expensive. And this leads to a high rate of dropout of those children, because if your parents cannot afford to send you to school, and then you go to that school and you are not doing well. So the next thing an African parent thinks of is a vocational training. So many of these children, even before they become aware of their strength, they are already out of school. So it leads to a very high rate of dropouts of these children, and it leads to lots of the dyslexic potentials in Africa. We have so many dyslexia potentials in the Western world that are succeeding and doing very well. But here, we lose them before they even realize they can succeed to the street. And in Africa, less than 5% of African countries have policies on dyslexia. Most of African countries do not even have any dyslexia-related policy in their educational systems. So that is how much dyslexia is not really recognized as a situation that needs attention in Africa. Now, what have I done and what have my organizations done to support individuals with dyslexia in Africa and beyond? Immediately after I emerged as the best graduating student of the prestigious University of Ibadan, God inspired my heart to go back to support and inspire children with dyslexia in Africa and globally. As the co-founder of Dyslexia Project Africa, an organization inspiring and supporting African children with dyslexia to succeed, we are presently running a project, Dyslexia Project 500, which aims at creating dyslexia awareness in 500 primary schools across Africa. And we presently have our volunteers across African countries creating dyslexia awareness across primary schools in Africa. And so far, we have been able to reach over 380 schools in Africa and also educate over 27,000 pupils on dyslexia in Africa. We are trying to treat the problem from the grassroots level, ensuring that the present and next generations of Africans are aware of dyslexia and also dyslexia friendly. They are able to support their colleagues in class with dyslexia, not saying she, you know the way we do it. And as the founding director of Dyslexia Counselling and Support Institute, we are providing dyslexia support services to individuals with dyslexia, families, and educational professionals based on my lived-in experience. I've lived dyslexia, so I know what individuals with dyslexia need to thrive, and professional expertise. Recently, we launched our first service, Dyslexia Relations and Success Program. This is a program to develop the self-esteem of individuals with dyslexia, discover their areas of strength, and help them to succeed in their areas of strength. It's not all dyslexics that become best graduation students. So, but we have to, there are some of them that have become footballers, that have become successful actresses, that have become successful chefs. So we need to discover their area of strength and help them to succeed in that area of strength. Not like the way a typical African parents will do that. Okay, even though this child is not doing well in class, you still want that child to have first position in class. And you're not doing any other thing about it. You're still insisting that okay, this child is not good, but all I want for my child is for my child to have the first position, which is very, very wrong. There are so many things that child can do outside academics. So on this March, I wrote my dyslexia story and launched it. So it's titled The Dyslexic Juniors. I wrote my dyslexia story to inspire every child with learning difficulties globally. So, and very soon we are starting the Dyslexic Juniors book project, which aims at getting the Dyslexic Juniors book into the hands of every child with learning difficulties globally. We want as many child with learning difficulties as possible inspired to succeed. We want them to see possibilities of what they can become, even with dyslexia. Now that we are awakened to the reality of dyslexia, what can we do as individuals? What can we do as a country? And what can we do as a continent? Because the future of the present generation of dyslexic potentials in Africa rests in our hands. First, advocacy. Let's start by advocating for individuals with learning difficulties and misters. Let's start by saying no to the bullying of individuals with dyslexia. Let's start by saying no to the verbal and physical abuse of children with dyslexia in the school system. And let's start by showing empathy towards children with dyslexia in the school system. Even when we don't know what to do, the least we can do is to be very kind and patient with them. And let's also start by stopping the comparison between children with dyslexia and other children. We do that a lot in Africa, and it has to stop. And we should also ensure that every individual with symptoms of dyslexia around us gets the right intervention. Dyslexia support is now available. There is now special school for dyslexia even in Africa, even in Lagos. So we should make sure that they get the right support that they need. And they should get this right heavy. I got my whole support at the age of 10. I graduated from university very late. I was usually among the oldest students in class. Imagine if I had gotten it right heavy. So when they are getting the right support, make sure they get it quite early, so that they can start thriving and succeeding early, not way behind their peers. And also, the government of African countries should start implementing and enforcing dyslexia policies in our educational system. We should start creating an environment that recognizes, accommodates, and also empower these children to strive in the educational system. Having awakened us to the reality of dyslexia, I want to challenge everyone here today to be awakened from anything holding us down. Turn it into strength and go after the future of your dreams. Just as I turned my struggle with dyslexia into strength by emerging as the best graduating student of a prestigious university in Africa, University of Ibadan, and now championing dyslexia advocacy in Africa. Always remember, the universe is not on budget. You can always ask for more, and there is no limit to what you can become.